of love on either side. Equally certainly, there existed between them a rare and exquisite camaraderie, a perfect comprehension that often made words superfluous. A look sufficed. They toiled up the steep, narrow path until they reached a wide trail, a carriage road that had been laid out and abandoned. It swept around the mountainside, miles above the little city on the plain, and terminated suddenly at an immense gateway of stone. Here the mountain had been torn asunder, and two palisades of gray-green rock rose grim and terrible for hundreds of feet, while between them, dashing over boulders and trees and the impediments of ages, a little stream rushed along in the eternal night at their base. Far away to the west, range upon range piled themselves against the intense blue sky. Beyond a rustic gate, standing across the path that narrowed to a few feet before the wall of stone, a park, sparkling and green in the sunlight, was visible. They stopped and regarded the two gateways, one the work of nature, the other the feeble counterfeit of man, and then, swinging open the creaking wooden affair, passed into the peaceful valley. A few yards away stood a small log cabin, but the chimney was smokeless, and though the chickens clucked in the yard and a collie lay on the doorstep, it seemed desolate and deserted. Passing along an almost invisible trail, they found themselves in the wildest and most remote part of that wild and remote region. They saw a few stray animals, but no human beings. This was one of the few places where mining was not a universal pursuit, and it was too early to do much in the few mines that did exist. There are entire sections in the Rockies that are deserted for more than half the year, and this was one of them. That day there was no one at the signal station. The keeper had gone down to the valley for fresh stores and to learn something of the terrific disturbances that were said to be threatening the entire eastern coast with annihilation. Perhaps the owners of the log cabin had made a similar pilgrimage. The scene was flooded with moonlight when the travelers passed the gate on their homeward way and sat down on a boulder a few yards without the frowning portal. The night was cold, and the woman had put on her jacket and sunk her numbed fingers in its pockets. In spite of her weariness, she was troubled and restless, and turning, looked first at the beetling crags back of them, then away over the plain at the twinkling lights of the town below. They heard indistinctly the sounds of bells ringing wildly, and overhead flocks of birds circled and called with shrill, uncanny voices. Yet the moonlight was so bright that they saw each other as plainly as if it were day, and its placid radiance seemed strangely at variance with the disturbed wildfowl, and certain weird and fitful sounds that seemed to be sighed forth from the bosom of the earth. "It is a pity," she said, "that we cannot pass through this gateway into paradise without descending to earth again." "I don't believe you are half as tired of life as you say," he answered with an impatient movement of his head. "You may not shrink from death as I do, or enjoy life so keenly, but isn't it a good thing to be alive tonight? Isn't it fine to be a mile or so above the rest of humanity and the deadly conventionalities? Aren't you glad you came?" She did not answer, but presently said dreamily, "Suppose that plain was the sea?" "It isn't hard to suppose," he answered. "I have seen the Pacific when it looked just so." "Oh, no," she said quickly. "Nothing is like the sea but itself. You will never persuade me that I love the mountains so well. And the plains, just imagine if all that gray, green silver were gray blue, with here and there a gathering crest of foam, racing to break in spray about these mountains." "Why, look," he said.